So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the sort of philosophy of the series coming up, Nietzsche and all those other dudes. We're going to be talking about how to hold the pen. We're going to be talking about the value of time drawings. And we're going to be talking about things that need to be held gently. Baby egg, tiny amphibian, all that idea about straight lines, throw it away. All those notions you have that your drawing has to look like the reference drawing, forget it. No, get rid of all that. This whole series is about going back to basics. It's about stripping away all those preconceptions, sort of liberating yourself to have fun with mark making and really develop an expressive style. Yeah, it's going to be good. So here it is, my new series on how to draw. And so before we start getting into the giggle weeds, I want to talk a little bit about philosophy, which sounds terribly highbrow, but it's not necessarily about Nietzsche and all those other dudes. It's more the idea of like what we're trying to achieve here. So most of our interaction with drawing tends to come along with learning to write. So we hold the pen at the front and we get very, very fussy and we get very detailed. And often I think as we get more into developing our art skills, maybe in later life we start to appreciate the back of the pen more and a more loose and free sketching style that's more expressive and it's got a bit more sort of life into it. So that's one of the things I really want to concentrate with this series is developing a nice loose style of sketching. So in this series we're going to be talking about lots of new techniques, lots of different ways to approach drawing, observation, and how when we look at a scene, whether it's a reference drawing or we're sketching in the flesh, what happens is that scene goes through our eyes, gets processed in our brain, and then we commit it to paper with our hands. So it's interesting how we tend to think of drawing as a very much a learnt physical skill, but actually it's a mental thing. So for me, one of the beautiful things about sketching is it's so simple. You really don't need complicated equipment. You know, you can use a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper. So using a pen only and going straight in with a pen, I think is actually a really good way of building confidence. So I'd really encourage you from the start, actually, to use a pen directly onto the paper and commit to it and get comfortable with making marks that you're not really sure about. That's something that's really important. And I think that will help develop your confidence and develop your style far more than waiting for the perfect pencil line after rubbing out 12. So what pen do we need? Any pen. You can use any pen at all. You can go in with a biro, you can use a fountain pen, whatever pen you're comfortable with. If you're not sure, if you're really new to this, I'd recommend using a fine liner. Good consistent line widths, anything like a fine liner is great. And as far as paper is concerned, it really doesn't matter. We're not putting any water on the paper. We're not painting over the top of it. So I'm going to do some really simple shapes with this little Platinum Preppy fountain pen. These are cool little pens. They're less than $10. Oh, they're only a few quid. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a series of shapes. So we're going to do some circles, some squares, a simple tree, and then a sort of house shape. And those 4 different elements, now I'm going to start by holding the pen at the very front. So the first one is holding the pen at the nib. So you're holding it right down the bottom there. Now if we do the circles, obviously, you're not holding it too tight, remember. The one thing I would say for all of these is don't hold the pen tight. You want to be holding it loose. You want to be holding it in the same way that you would hold... What would you hold loosely? A marshmallow? Baby egg? Tiny amphibian? Newborn mouse? It's not, you know, this isn't a journey of fear. This is a journey of relaxation. You're going to get some quite nice, neat control circles. Yours might not look like that, doesn't matter. We've all got our own circles. The same thing with the squares, if we do some squares that are quite close together. So let's do, you know, squares within a square, something like that. Or you can do them separately or whatever, as long as you do them all the same. It doesn't really matter. And then for your tree, we're going to draw a tree trunk, maybe a couple of lines around there like that. And just a bit of a wobbly tree, really, you know, just that usual sort of tree shape. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's what you'd expect, really. And then for your house. Let's do a double line for like a gable, for like a roof, and then we've got a window. I love these drawings of little houses and things. They so remind me of being a kid and, you know, world making. So they're creating imaginary worlds and all that. Just very happy play. So there you go, there's your house. So that's your sort of, whatever you've done normally, you know, to start with holding the pen at the front, that's your sort of benchmark. So let's go a little bit further back and hold the pen in the middle. Now what am I doing here is I'm also trying not to put my forearm on the table. It's worth mentioning this, I'm keeping my elbow up a little bit. And what that's doing is that's meaning that I'm drawing a lot more from the shoulder. And straight away you can see that's lost a little bit of its kind of regularity. That one's not quite so noticeable. Let's try and do the squares. Becoming more and more looser as we get down the page. Okay, so this is a pen at end. Now, if your pen is like, if you're like me and you post your cap, which means putting the cap on the end of the pen, I'd recommend you take that off for this and just hold the pen at the end there. If you hold it there, it means you can sort of brace it a little bit. So I'd encourage you to go right to the end here and hold it right at the end. Just enough to get sort of, you know, one segment of your finger on, if that makes sense. So sort of like that. Okay, so when it comes to doing the circles, so we have our first version here. So these are the shapes that we're doing. So we have our first version here, which is holding the pen at the very end, and you can see it's nice and tight. Nothing wrong with that. And then we get a little bit looser as we hold the pen in the middle. And then as we get further down, we get even looser. So as you can see from those simple shapes, how you hold a pen really does change the way you make marks. You know, if you hold a pen further back, you get looser and looser marks. And this is something that, you know, artists have known for years. And that's the reason why paintbrushes are so long. So you can hold the end of the paintbrush and get really, really loose with your brush strokes. So this is stuff that really helped me. This whole series really is things that have really helped me, because I wouldn't recommend trying stuff that didn't, frankly. So for the main exercise of this lesson, we're going to be doing a time drawing. Now I'm going to insist that 5 minutes is your maximum time per drawing. Now what I want you to do is do your first drawing, and then I want you to use the front of the pen. So hold the pen like you normally would be if you were writing. And as I say, it doesn't matter what pen, doesn't matter what paper, you can use a pencil if you want. I'd rather use the pen though. And 5 minutes to do this drawing. And then once you've done that, I want you to do the same drawing again next door so you can see them side by side. And you want you to hold the pen towards the back, maybe in the middle or further back. And we'll just do the same drawing again. And I want you to not care about making mistakes. I want you to draw the same line 8 times, draw some crazy circles, just be really free and expressive with your mark making. I want you to finally liberate yourself from this idea of what is right and what is wrong, and that I can't do this, and that what happens if I put a line in the wrong place. Just get rid of it. It's pointless. It's just you here having fun with a bit of paper. And at the end of the day, if you tear it up, put it in the bin, shove it in your ear, it doesn't matter. It's just a bit of paper, okay? There's no danger here. There's no peril. The only peril is not meeting your own expectations. So take those expectations and put them somewhere else. Doesn't matter. This is play. You've been told. Right, so for this one, I'm obviously holding the pen here. I'm using a fine liner so that it can keep up, because sometimes when you're sketching really, really fast, a fountain pen, it won't keep up with the amount of ink that's required. So with a big fine liner, there should be plenty. So I'm going to start by holding this one at the bottom, as I said before. holding hands with another person. There you go. That's time up. So there we go. Holding the pen at the front, that's where we've got to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift and hold a pen sort of halfway between the middle and the back, and I'm going to hold it back there, and I'm going to try and do the same, but this time I'm purposely going to be more loosey, more sketchy, more try and keep the pen on the paper more, starting on this side and making my way across. So I want you to look at the different style of sketching here, okay? Right, so that's that. And this here is obviously incredibly scruffy and kind of fast and gestural and a bit messy really. And this one is a lot more outlines and sort of single lines. And yes, I think I did sketch that a lot faster, but I think when you're holding the pen at the back, you tend to be holding it further back. You tend to work faster anyway. I think that's the sort of nature of it really. Right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I've got myself a cup of peppermint tea here because I'm such a rock star. What do you think of that? It's good, isn't it? I love little timed exercises. I think they're really, really useful. When I used to do life drawing, I used to find that the short 2 and 5 minute exercises were always my favourite because the lines were expressive and there was a real sense of freedom about the mark making, which, you know, if you have like an hour to craft it and to be detailed, it somehow just loses that lovely spontaneity. And that's what I love in my own art, and that's kind of what I want you guys to try and encapsulate and really strive for in your own mark making, is just a bit of life, a bit of zest. So here I'm just showing you other examples of quick 5-minute sketches that I've done. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to just show you some speeded up versions of those. There's this little house and an abandoned sort of colonial homestead there. And again, I'm kind of using the fine liner, trying to use some big marks, trying to get sort of loose with the line work. For the second one here, it's a sort of city scene. Again, I'm trying to use the perspective lines, all the lines going to the middle. It's a sort of 1-point perspective. We'll be covering that later in this course. So here's some other examples of 5-minute drawings, and I really want you to try this technique. It's a really good way of loosening yourself up. It's a great way of warming up for longer drawings. These short speed drawing sessions are a great way of deprogramming you slightly from the way that you've probably drawn for a long time. So the information from your eyes is going quite quickly through your brain, straight to your hand, and you're not overthinking, and that's the crucial thing. And this again is why I want to encourage you to do it with pen, because there's no rubbing out, there's no going back. You can learn to live with your lines and your marks. So choose some simple scenes. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, you know, just a little house in a field or some trees. Don't do a big cityscape or something, not at this stage for a 5-minute drawing. And just set that timer on your phone or on your watch, or just have a clock, you know, and just do little 5-minute sessions, and don't worry about finishing those pieces. You know, even if you get halfway through, it's still a very, very valued exercise. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know, do like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and it helps push people to my Patreon, which is over there. And that is where people, for a small amount every month, can subscribe. And that's what really keeps the lights on in terms of me being able to take time away from all my other work and justify the camera equipment and actually taking time to edit up proper videos. And next week, we're going to be having fun. We're talking about observation. So we're going to be talking about how we see the world and ratios and stuff like that. And obviously as we get further and further through the series, we're going to be doing more technical exercises on texture drawing, textures and continuous line drawing, and you know, how to draw faces and how to draw trees and cars and sheep and dogs and cats and fish. Drawbridges. Drawbridges. Drawbridges? So I hope you can give yourself the time and give yourself the space, you know, to try some of these techniques. Have a go, have a play, and let me know how you get on. Okay, we'll see you next time. Cheers, bye.